I Should Be Writing number 374. Hi there. Welcome to I Should Be Writing, the podcast for wannabe fiction writers. I'm your host, Mur Lafferty. And I gotta say, I think the ADHD meds are working quite well, because if you haven't noticed, those of you who only listen to I Should Be Writing may not have noticed, but those of you who listen to both, I've managed to get a podcast up every Monday for a couple of weeks now. And I have not podcasted weekly in a very long time. So, while sometimes I feel like I can still get easily distracted, the reality is that I am more productive. So I'm feeling better. It's funny, I've been feeling invisible lately. And for reasons that I don't entirely feel comfortable talking about, because it feels a little bit like whining, but the emotions are there, and I'm just trying to deal with them. Most recently, and I have to say this very broadly, I had many people planned something that included me, and it was something awesome. But they didn't tell me. So it's like I heard about it offhand. And I'm like, what? I'm supposed to be involved in this? What? It's just everybody involved. We're talking about it like I was there and on board, and no one thought to ask me. And so I was not invisible to the point of being not thought about completely. But people just sort of assumed I would be there and be free and be eager. And all those things were true, but it still would have been nice to be asked, because it was awkward and weird when I realized what was going on. But in other news, I started a new book last week. It's a weird thing, because I've got these ideas that have been in my head for years, and I really wanted to, that they feel big and epic and risky, and I really want to do something big and epic and risky. And then, like Sunday morning, I was just thinking, and an entire plot burst out of my head. And I'm like, all right, I'll write this. And I wrote about 1,500 words, and then I wrote some character sketches and some a rough plot. And I'm just trying to figure out how this thing works, because there are these plots that I've been thinking about since like 2013 or so, and they still have not, like, I'll start and I'll stop, and my agent tried to sell one of them as a proposal, didn't work. I still believe in it, so I still like to work on it some more, but still, it's a weird thing. I don't know. But I'm going to work on the one that wants to be written, because I don't have anything, I'm not contracted for anything right now. So if I have a book that's saying, hey, write me, and nothing else in the way, I'm going to write that book. My friend Alasdair has codenamed it Space Meat Diner. So I don't have a lot of time, actually, because I'm trying to be responsible. We're recording Ditch Digger's interview shortly. Since I am actually managing to get my feet under me regarding podcasting regularly, I'm going to bring back the I Should Be Writing interviews next month. So that should be fun. But for now, I just want to talk about some basics. And I want to talk about, this time, I want to talk about some conflict basics. And you know how really bad I am at tooting my own horn, but this is something that never seems to be talked about. I've never seen it talked about anywhere, but in my study of story structure, I realized that it's a fundamental fact when it comes to conflict within your story. And that is, almost every character has got to have an internal conflict and an external conflict. To use any number of gumshoe detective stories, the detective is usually down on his luck, poor, an alcoholic, a divorcee, or something. Look at Die Hard. Yeah, he's trying to deal with the building that's taken over by terrorists, but the internal conflict is the problem he's having with his wife. And I think sometimes people want to put their character in a bad external situation. But if the character doesn't show up already damaged, they're not going to show any depth, because a lot of times you have to get over what's going on inside in order to confront what's going on outside. I mean, on a very basic level, Indiana Jones is afraid of snakes, and he has to get over his fear of snakes to save the day. It's our internal conflicts that shape us and make us who we are. Whether it's bad relationships, or struggling with an addiction, or a chronic syndrome, or illness, or whatever, how we deal with that is magnified when we deal with our external conflict. You know, if the aliens attacked today and I were a fictional character, I would have to deal with the fact that I have not been very active lately, and I would have to deal with the fact that I'm afraid of spiders. And those are just some basic things. You know, throw in family members I don't get along with, the disapproval of my extended family, and all that would be brought into the fight with the aliens. Not directly. You know, they don't have to kidnap my aunt to have me deal with, have my personality show the conflict I had with her, but something manifested from the conflict I had with her. I'm getting a little too personal here. But one thing that's funny is, it's in a lot of books, especially the series books, while the protagonist can take care of the external conflict, the internal conflict is still there at the end. Which makes a certain amount of sense, because a lot of times the internal conflict is something that is part of you and takes more than a novel to fix. I'm thinking of the Dresden Files. Harry Dresden's usually poor. He can't have any sort of technology around him. And those two things get in his way a lot. He's got to have a really crappy car. Not any of the new cars that run with computers. No, he has to have a really old car. Things like that. And it's actually a challenge. If you want to fix their internal conflict, it's a big challenge, because you wonder, is it going to change how your story's told if you fix that conflict? Take Arthur, the movie from 1980. Dudley Moore was an alcoholic back then. That was funny. I've recently watched it. It's weird what we used to laugh at. It's kind of scary. But the internal conflict was his alcoholism and not being willing to grow up. And his external conflict was being forced to get married to somebody he didn't love. And by the end, he had fixed one of them. And he was, because he was growing up and getting married to somebody he did love, you assumed that the alcoholism would be addressed. Arthur was a very successful movie. Arthur 2, not so much. The conflict was he'd lost all of his money, and he and his wife were trying to conceive, and I believe the alcoholism came into it, but it was not as memorable because he'd already grown up, so you'd fix that. See, I hate it. I reference television and movies because millions of people see television and movies, while at best, thousands of people will have read your books. I mean, I'm pretty sure I can reference Harry Potter or Game of Thrones or any number of classics and have people nod along, but sometimes it's just faster to go to find examples in television and movies. But a lot of times in sitcoms, when you give these characters these defining characteristics, you need some of that to be a conflict. And when you fix that, it's, you have to be careful. Like in The Office, one of the big conflicts was the unrequited love between Pam and Jim. Once that was resolved, they were still really interesting characters, and they were growing in new ways, but I felt like the conflicts given to that relationship felt heavy-handed. You have to make a character truly change to make it feel real. In that case, Angela and Dwight were much more well-rounded characters because they started out with their internal conflicts being very black and white. I mean, they were not complex characters. But once Dwight realized that he did not need to be completely subservient to the person in charge, and the person in charge is fallible, and Angela realized that if something goes wrong, it's usually not because God hates you. They grew into different characters and more interesting characters. So I'm getting a little bit off track. I'm going from conflict to character, which, to make a point, conflict and character need to be tied together. It's the conflict within the character and out of the character that makes the character interesting. So there's your lesson for today. Conflict within helps drive how the character deals with conflict without. And if you want to start simple, conflict within can be they're wearing the pants that don't fit. They've got a hole in their sock. I don't know about you, but if I've got like a hangnail or a blister, the world may not know about it, but it is going to change how I view my day a little bit. If I have to cook with lemons, I'm going to notice that hangnail a whole lot. If I have to break into a run because there's a sudden thunderstorm, I'm going to notice that blister on my foot a lot. So that's just a very basic thing, but the internal stuff changes how I view the external stuff. So that's all I have today. I'm about to record a Ditch Diggers about being a stay-at-home parent and a full-time writer. If you have a question for I Should Be Writing, email mightymur@gmail.com. I'll probably be doing a feedback show next week, or the next episode. You can see the blog and show notes at murverse.com/blog. And you can support the Patreon and get all of these episodes early, number one, and number two, get access to the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of archived I Should Be Writings I've done since 2005. So that's patreon.com/mightymur. I also have a book out. It's called 6 Wakes. It is a murder mystery in space with plenty of internal conflict and plenty of external conflict. And if you like this podcast, I have a book coming out that's nonfiction called I Should Be Writing. It'll be out this summer. I don't even know if it's available for pre-order yet. Hang on. Hold that thought. It is available for pre-order, and it has a cover. I haven't seen the cover. Alright, so you can pre-order I Should Be Writing. I think that's all the things I have to list off to you. I will see you in 2 weeks with a feedback episode. Until then, you totally should be writing. And you should pre-order the book that I just saw for the first time.